Taylor, otherwise known as the Reverend Dr. Mark V.C. Taylor, and we're here in the Overflow. We're here on a heavy night, the night after the murder of Gregory Floyd. The Bible study, essentially, I was going to begin with the background of Thessalonica, or Thessalonica in the Greek, Thessalonia to us. But I had to deviate and talk about Gregory Floyd's murder. The film, the policeman was on his neck. I read 8 minutes. Deacon Flowers said he watched it. He said it was 9 minutes. And there's rioting. There was a peaceful march either today or yesterday. And then there was a violent attack on the precinct. I understand today they surrounded the officer's house, and the officers have been fired, I think, and yes, they've been fired, but many people are saying they need to be criminally charged. And I tried to link that with the grace of God, and talk about Christianity beginning with a murder, the murder of Jesus Christ, and the murder of Stephen, who was full of grace. And after we see Stephen do 3 things: he helps solve the conflict in the church about food, he does wonders and signs among the people, and then God uses him in a confrontation. And he's full of grace. And so grace does solve problems. Grace does work signs and wonders, but grace also confronts. And by 51, he just unloads on the religious leaders the truth that they have a prophet-killing spirit. And when they hear this, they gnash their teeth and they murder him, and they give their clothes to a young man named Saul. And I said last week that the grace of God has consequences. The grace of God, part of its multiplication is in its consequences. The persecution that came after Stephen died forced the church to go into the Gentile world. And the Syrian church and the Ethiopian Coptic church are 2 of the great churches that come out of all the Orthodox churches, as a matter of fact, come out of Philip's efforts and the efforts of the church at Antioch. Okay, all the Orthodox church family comes out of that branch. So we're here tonight to answer questions. I deviated because it's one thing to know of a murder, but to see a murder and to see a law enforcement officer murder, I said it's depressing, it's deflating, and I'm heavy with it, and I'm sure many of you are heavy with it. And so we want to share our heaviness in the Word of God. The Bible says in the last verse of the book of Romans, Romans 12, I read it earlier. It says, don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So I struggle for liberation. I struggle as a people. I struggle for justice. I struggle for righteousness. And in a sense, I struggle to make America live up to the ideals of democracy, the ideals of law, and the spirit of embracing life instead of killing it. That struggle goes on. That is our struggle. And so we're here tonight because that is Romans 12 and 21. Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12 is a good chapter to read. Psalms I would read in my personal devotion, I've been in Psalms 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and those are good Psalms to read because even in the face of evil, God is yet moving. And even in the face of this pandemic, if the pandemic alone wasn't enough, we have the unleashing of certain demons that are moving through the land. This demon of police brutality, this demon of greed that is making many a politician put opening up before anything else, opening up too early. And listen, you all have read, everybody's already said it, the church was never closed, the church just shifted. You know that, but know this, that when they open up the White House and the governor's mansion, then we'll open up the doors here to this church, because our lives are just as important as anybody else's. And this is the genius of the Black Lives Matter movement, because white supremacy and racism says at its core that your life is not as valuable as a white life. And the genius of the movement is to lift up the simplest term, that black lives do matter. And black lives really do matter to God, for whom all lives matter. Okay, we got some questions. All right.
We love the Lord and are grateful for His grace, but we keep asking the Lord, how long? How can we control this pent-up anger because the flesh is still a mess?
Okay. Y'all not gonna let me warm up, huh? They're just gonna throw me right in. Read the question again. You know what? Yeah, give her the mic and read the question in the mic so all of our hearers will hear this. I want y'all to hear this question. Excellent question. I'll set it up next time. Yeah, don't get in front of the camera.
How can we control this pent-up anger because the flesh is still a mess? How long?
All right, now get in front of me. Be quick. Move fast, right? That's it. Move fast. Well, this is part of the stuff we got to work out. We need some more. We need some more microphones.
They can hear me. I'm right here.
They can hear you.
Yes.
Well, you got to read louder then. Okay.
Okay.
I need to hear you too. Read the question one more time. I need to get my mind around. How long? Because the flesh is a mess.
How can we control this pent-up anger because the flesh is still a mess?
No, I think you should let your anger out. One of the things about tonight is I have a chance to let my anger out, and by shifting my Bible study and talking about this murder, I think you should let your anger out. Now, many of you, I think, have constructively let your anger out on Facebook. I applaud that. That's good. Write and call in to your elected officials, call your city councilwoman and express your anger, because we highlighted Gregory Floyd, but we also mentioned Amy, what's her name?
Cooper?
Yes, we also mentioned Amy Cooper. See, Amy Cooper calling on Christian
Cooper.
Amy Cooper, what was the name of the man?
Christian Cooper.
Christian Cooper. Amy Cooper could have caused a similar response in the life of Christian Cooper. And now she's all apologetic and crying, talking about her life is ruined. Well, when you called the police on a black man, what did you think you were doing then? You were ruining his life, okay? And you relied on the racism that is throughout the society. You relied on the idea that black people are guilty until we prove them innocent. You relied on the tension between the bad police and the community. You relied on that to get revenge on him for telling you to do something you should have done anyway. So I don't accept your apology. It's fake. You're not sorry. You just got caught. All right? You're just embarrassed because now you lost your job. Now you're on everybody's Facebook page. Now you just reveal what you really are. You know, and I pray for you. Christian Cooper himself, I saw he said he wanted people to stop calling a woman and tell them they're going to kill her. I agree. You don't need to threaten anybody's life. Listen, when you deal with evil, you got to make sure you don't become evil. Evil is contagious. You think the coronavirus is contagious? Evil is contagious. That's why Jesus said, love your enemies. He wasn't talking about feel good. He's talking about love that is a force of goodwill. Love is an act of will, because if you don't love your neighbor, one of the first steps, love your enemy, one of the first steps in loving your enemy is to pray for them. And I heard a preacher once say, if you hate your enemy, you get locked into a spiritual wavelength, and you start to become like the enemy you hate. If you've seen the great movie with Adolf Caesar and Denzel Washington, The Soldier Story, that's exactly the theme of that. That you can hate so strongly till you wind up becoming what you hate. And so we do not want to become, and name it Cooper, we do not want to become, what is the man's name? What is the officer's name? Look, that is knelt on this man's name. We're going to look up his name. Somebody look it up and tell us. We do not want to become him. We want to stay in Christ. Now that doesn't mean we don't defend ourselves. I believe in self-defense. Okay? I'm still working very hard on turn the other cheek. I believe in turn the other cheek. Well, I only got 2. Amen. Well, 3, 4 if you count expansively. Okay, but after that, I'm working on that part. I'm flawed in that area. But I believe in self-defense. So let your anger out. Let your anger out, not on your family. Let your anger out in constructive action. Call your elected officials. One of the ways that I think is very healthy for dealing with your anger is to sit down and write what I call the unsent letters. Now I call it that, but this is not my idea. I found an exercise years ago in a book, and it said that when you're upset, you should sit down and write a letter to the people you're upset at, and then fold it up and keep it for 3 or 4 days and decide whether or not to send it. I have a lot of letters like this, letters that I've written to people when I was mad. I wanted to say something, but I knew I was off. I knew I was in the flesh, as our caller says. I'm in the flesh, and the flesh is a mess. Yes, it is. The unspiritual nature can make us do something in 1 second that goes against the whole trajectory of blessing in our life. So we have to be careful. But express your anger. Sit down and write something. And after you write it, hold it. You might want to come back and refine it and send it out again to your congressman. Send it out again to the mayor of Minneapolis. Send it out again to whoever you want to send it out to. Okay? So call, write, talk to people, express your anger. I'm sure that at some point someone is going to have a protest in all of our cities. And that'll be a time when we can go. And hopefully the protest will be nonviolent. And so express your anger. Express your anger to God. Tell the Lord, I'm mad. I'm about to lose it. Help me. When you cry out to God, it's not just about pain. Sometimes it's about indignation. And so I was crying out to God about this, But the Lord already told me, the anger of man, 1st chapter James, does not bring about the righteousness of God. The Lord had delivered me from anger at these kind of systemic attacks. And the Lord told me, don't go back like a dog to his vomit. Okay, so I express my anger. I'm thankful tonight to God. It's the grace of God that I had the ability to come and teach about it, to share my anger and my hurt and my dismay with all of you. Now again, I'm going to talk to some police tomorrow, as God will have it, and we all will talk about this. And that's an opportunity for me to express my anger. I'll be talking about it with all of you. We'll have other opportunities, but try to get that anger out. Because the Bible says anger lodges in the bosom of a fool. Anger can make you do something foolish. Yes, another question. Nice and loud.
Do you think it's time to take action? And if so, what action does the Church of the Open Door plan on taking in regards to all this police brutality and also the black-on-black crime in our communities?
That's an excellent question. Is it time to take action? Well, the things I said are actions. The writing to politicians, the calling politicians, the joining the protest. I do believe there'll be a rally somewhere, there'll be a protest. I think somebody's probably planning it right now. I think you need to go to the rally, you need to go to the protest. If I was in Minneapolis, I would have gone to the rally. I would have stayed away from the violent part, because I don't personally I don't think that's the solution I want to do. Someone attacks me violently, I'm going to be violent. But I'm not going to go and get in programmatic violence, because there's a lot of other things we have to do. And this is the other thing. The Bible also says, when you read the Bible, and it talks about Romans 13, it talks about rulers having the sword to deal with evil. And so police have a good function. For instance, in our church, which is in public housing development, if two people have a conflict, all right, I want them to be able to call the police and have the police come in to solve the conflict. I don't want the two people feeling they got to get guns and shoot each other. But I don't want the police to come and feel like they can just burst open the doors and just go outside of all laws and kill somebody. So what we want to do is we want to have a police department that knows its function, that respects its function, and that's doing that. And I've seen police do that. I've been helped greatly by police in my ministry. All right, I had a situation over on York Street once where there was some of you might notice, but a number of young people were about to jump on two young ladies over a phone. And I kind of got dragged into it, but when I went, and they saw me and they said, there's the church man. So I'm trying to talk everybody down. The police come, there was two police. There was a black policeman and a white woman policeman. The white woman wanted to call back up. The police said, no, let me talk. And by talking, he straightened the whole conflict out, sent everybody home. If it had been left up to her, she would have called a bunch of police. We would have had a tense situation and it could have been a mess. But by this black officer being calm and listening, in effect doing excellent community policing, as a matter of fact, he solved the issue. The issue was over the cell phone. He dealt with the situation so that somebody brought the receipts from the cell phone. He was able to give the cell phone back to his rightful owners and dismiss the whole crowd. Now, I was in awe. I should have wrote his name down and took it, but I guess I was so relieved, because violence could have came from any quarter. Those are the kind of police that we need. We do have black on black crime, which is rising in our community. We want to be able to call police to deal with that crime. We don't want to have to start a vigilante committee and go shoot people and tie them up, drop them down the steps and that kind of thing. No, we want to be able to call the police, but we have to have trust in the police. The police have to have respect for the people in the community. So it is time for action. And the first action, I think, is to get clear in your thoughts. Sit down and write something out. The next action is to communicate, put pressure. See, other communities put pressure on elected officials. The black community doesn't. We will fuss with each other, but we won't call Hakeem Jeffrey's office. We will fuss with each other, but we won't call Senator Schumer. We will fuss with each other, but we won't call the mayor. We won't call Lori Combo. We won't call our district leader Ola. We won't call Walter Moses. We need to call these people and let them know our outrage. Stamp it if you have to. Pound if you have to. All right? Because this is a complex situation. It's not going to be over tomorrow. It requires a well thought out and consistent response. Yes, next question.
How do you take a powerful and assertive stand without being violent or looked at as aggressive?
How do you take a powerful and assertive stand without being looked at as violent and aggressive? Well, first of all, you can never control how somebody looks at you anyway. It's one thing I learned. I was with one of my goddaughters once, and there was a conflict, and she told somebody, she said, don't let my name come out of your mouth. And I said, that's a heck of a statement. She said, keep my name out your mouth. Now, you could tell somebody that, but you can't make anyone keep your name out of their mouth. Neither can you control what they think of you. And I will tell you this, as someone who has been a leader in the community, many times the powers that be do not want to hear from assertive, strong black people who are going to tell the truth. I've been in I don't know how many meetings where I told the truth and they didn't know what to do. So much so that now when they have meetings on issues around here, they purposely don't ask me to come. And if someone tells me to come and I come, they're like, oh no, he ain't come. So you can't totally control it, but this is the thing. I think one of the things you want to do when you speak to people, you want to be clear what you're saying. That's one thing about cursing. Cursing removes the obligation to think through what you're saying. If you call somebody, you a mother, then you don't have to think through what's your problem. My problem ain't what you did with anybody's mama. My problem is what you're doing right now and the way you're acting. So first, think through the issue. Understand your points. Be clear about what the problem is. Ask the Lord to help you express it. Now you know there's a threatening way to express everything. Now somebody might say, we should not have to work on making ourselves non-threatening. Well, that's just simplistic. You have to work on making yourself effective. And you have to talk. And so I know that when I go to a lot of places, a lot of people are scared of me because I'm a black male. Me, I ain't 6 feet 10, 300 pounds. Me. Okay, I got on glasses. I look like the teacher, somebody told me once. Okay, but if I walk in a room and I'm not smiling at white folk, they're afraid. If I walk in a room and I'm not grinning, they're afraid. So what I try to do is I try to stick to the issue. What I try to do is I try to bring up the situation that is wrong and suggest things that need to be corrected. Now, that's if you're in that kind of situation. If you just want to tell somebody how you feel, just call your friends up and tell them how you feel. But understand this, all talk does not lead to change. All talk is not action. And one of the things we need to do in terms of the Church of the Open Door, the Church of the Open Door has been involved in many actions with the police. I just told you one. The Church of the Open Door will be involved in an action with the police tomorrow because I'll be in the precinct, at the local precinct. All right? As a representative of the church, I speak out. And there's a lot of things I can talk about. One time, one of our members was pushed into a wall, and I went to the precinct with 10 men. You would have thought it was the end of the world. They would call the police. They surrounded us. You know, they got ready for something violent. No, we just came to talk about you pushing one of our members into a wall in a sweep that you were doing. So sometimes too, we need to understand, some of our folk need to understand, if you take the emotion out of something and stick to the issue, it can help people resolve the issue. I understand getting mad. I understand yelling. I understand intimidation. But understand this, the powers that be ain't worried about you yelling. They got guns and bombs and tear gas and everything else. You have to always figure out where you are, what's the most effective response, what's the most efficient response to get a certain consequence, a certain outcome. All right. Now, sometimes it's not clear what that is. We have to work through that. But as I said, there'll be opportunities for protest. There's opportunities for writing our elected officials. There's opportunities for, you see a policeman, you want to talk to him, don't go off, don't go crazy. Because it's not efficient for you to walk up to somebody with a 9mm and start yelling. That's inefficient. Especially if they're already afraid of you. Especially if they might hate you. You got to ask yourself, what is the most efficient and effective thing to do at this time? Let me say something else. In terms of efficiency and effectiveness, you got to think it through. One of the most efficient things we can do is fill out our census form. Now, if you mad and you don't like this and you're ready to tear something down, but you have not filled out a census form, I'm telling you, you don't understand the nature of America. Huffing and puffing can't blow every house down. The census is about us getting counted. Our numbers are a reflection of our power. When we don't vote, we don't fill out the census, we can huff and puff all we want to, it changes nothing. So one of the things we can do, if you have not filled out your census form, go fill out your census form so you can be counted. But then again, reach out to the politicians, reach out to the elected officials. When there's a protest, make sure that you're there. Yes?
Has black-on-black crime become an excuse to kill black people?
Has black-on-black crime become an excuse to kill black people? Well, when people want to kill black people, they don't need an excuse. This fella who put his knee into this man's neck had no excuse. If his excuse was, well, he's dangerous. No, he's not. It's 4 of y'all, one on him, he's handcuffed. If his excuse was, well, he's a criminal. No, he's not. You don't prove criminals, you take away threats. If his excuse was, well, he might have a gun. No, he's not. Can't reach it. You got him handcuffed. 4 of y'all. If you felt he might have had a gun, you should have searched him. He was not called for a robbery. He was called for writing checks. This is the reality. People who are racist, who want to kill black people, don't need any excuse. Sometimes they make excuses. In the case of Emmett Till, it was the fact that he supposedly whistled at a white woman. But when Eric Gardner was choked to death, and Gregory Floyd quoted Eric Gardner, I can't breathe, there was no excuse. Selling Lucy's is not excuse to kill someone. That's a murderous intent in your heart, all right? And so people who kill black people, they don't have to have an excuse, and we need to realize that. But we also need to realize this, there is black on black crime. And we should not just talk about police brutality. Well, if you are not involved in the community, you might have the luxury of just talking about police brutality. But me, as a worker in the community, as a leader, I can't just talk about police brutality. I have to also talk about crime. And to me, crime is crime, you know. Black on black crime. It's just black people. People tend to commit crimes against the people that are around them. And so there's a whole lot of white on white crime, all right? And one of the things we have to do as a people is we have to keep the balance. The attack on white supremacy, the attack on racism, the attack on black self-destruction. And crime is an element of black self-destruction. What did drug using and drug dealing do? It destroyed the black community. We have to keep a balance on that. And so I have to talk about crime, because who are the first victims of crime? Old people. Who are the first victims of crime? Weak people, oftentimes women. These are the first victims of crime, the most vulnerable black people in the society. All right, do I have another question? Okay, so understand this, the powers that be, they don't need an excuse. The hatred against black people. Now, understand this too. There is, as I said, under the law, you are presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. That's supposed to be the way the law treats everybody. But because of racism, because of stereotyping, because of profiling, because of the ideology of white supremacy, black people are presumed guilty until they're proven innocent. And sometimes that's not until they're dead. And so what we have to do is work to change the laws in the society and work to help people understand. And so again, I invite everybody to, when you hear of a protest, our organizations, the National Action Network, the Arc of Justice, the NAACP, any other organizations, I'm sure they all will be marching and they'll be protesting and there'll be rallies. We should all go. But we should also realize that there are a number of problems that our community has. Police brutality is only one of them. And I don't think you put one over the other. Tonight we're dealing with police brutality. Tomorrow it might be something else. But I, for one, like to do what Malcolm X did. Malcolm X always mentioned the two together. Malcolm X didn't just attack white supremacy. If you read Malcolm X and study him, he attacked what black people do to black people. And a lot of what black people do to black people is a function of white supremacy. A lot of what black people do to black people is a function of racism. We've got to keep all of it